In this lesson, we'll learn about the different types of brushes available to us in Illustrator's brush panel. Alright, so understanding and mastering brushes in Illustrator is really an important part of many different workflows. Now, before we can begin mastering these brushes, we need to first talk about what is a brush and what is a brush stroke. Now, brush strokes can be used to stylize either an existing path or a new path in Adobe Illustrator. Now, I'm going to pull up here to the area above my document, and we've got here a path already drawn. Now, the central place where you're going to go to create, manage, and really organize all of your brush strokes is going to be the brush panel, and that's right here in Illustrator. So I've got here an existing path selected, and you can see here we can have several different brushes loaded up here by default in this brush panel, and we can select any of these and apply that brush stroke to this existing path. Now, we can also generate a new path using one of these brush strokes using our brush tool here. Now let me go and select that right here from our toolbox, and I'll just draw in a path. Now you can see here that the new path I've drawn has been, a brush stroke has been applied to this path, and it's this stroke right here. Now, at any time we could select either one of these paths and revert it over to just a basic stroked path using this basic option right here. Now you can see here that we've now got a 1-point basic stroke. So we can do that for both of these. And let's go ahead and talk about these brushes that are already living in our brush panel here. Now, I mentioned these are default. Now, these are going to be basic calligraphic style brushes. Now, there's 5 different types of brushes that we can actually create within Illustrator. And let me go ahead and just hit this new brush button right down here in the bottom. So we're going to go ahead and hit that, and we've got here, you can see there's 5 options here, but 2 of them are grayed out, and we'll talk about that here in just a moment. First, let's go ahead and talk about this first option. Now, we've got the calligraphic style brush option here, and it's selected, so let's go ahead and hit OK on that. Now, you can see here that we get a series of options specifically geared towards creating a calligraphic style brush here. Now, first thing we do is we can name our brush, and then we can come down here and we can actually change the roundness of the tip of our brush. Now, you can see here as I change the roundness of this brush tip, the roundness percentage right down here changes. So we can also rotate the angle of that brush as well, and you can see here that again the angle is changing based on the position of this brush. Now you just grab that little arrow right there at the tip and you can rotate that brush tip around. So you can see here the effect that that is having on our brush tip. You can also change the default diameter of the brush. Now right now it's set at 9 points. You can change that based on this little slider right here. Now we've also got a little drop down option for each one of these 3 settings here. So these are something you should get used to seeing, because these options right here are available to us on many different settings within the brush panel. So let's go ahead and drop one of these down and take a look at this. Let's go ahead and pick the diameter here. Now, right now they're all set to fixed, but we can actually drop that down and choose either a random diameter. We can choose a diameter that's based on pen pressure, the stylus wheel, the tilt, bearing, or rotation here. So, being that I'm using a pen and tablet here, let's go ahead and just select pressure and go ahead and hit OK on this, and we'll see what effect that has. Now you can see here a new brush has been added to my brush panel. So let's come over here and use my brush tool, and we'll just draw in a new path. Now, I'm going to press really lightly and then graduate over to a really thick line by pressing harder on my tablet here. You can see here that there hasn't been much change in the brushstroke we created. Let's go ahead and come in here and modify this brush. I'm going to double click on that, and the reason why is because we set this to pressure, but we didn't set the variation. Notice there's a variation slider available to us now. So let's go ahead and increase the variation, and we'll draw another path here. Now, by modifying this brush, it's giving me the option to either apply these new settings to all strokes, leave the strokes alone and only apply it to new strokes, or we can of course cancel that. So let's go ahead and apply this to all strokes here. And you can see here now that we start out really thin here and we get really thick here at the other side. So this is going to be your basic calligraphic style brush. Now, I'll tell you what, let's go ahead and clear off some of this area, and let's talk about the next style of brush we can create. I'm going to go ahead and select this piece of artwork I've got right here. Let's go ahead and hit the new brush button right there again. And you can see that these 2 grayed out options are now available to us. We have the scatter brush and we have the art brush. Now, the reason these are available to us is that Illustrator actually needs artwork to create one of these two types of brushes, and because I have this artwork selected, we can now create either one of these. Now, a scatter brush is going to lay down copies of an object along a path, and we can vary the amount and the way that that object is scattered along the path. Now, let me just go ahead and hit OK on that. You can see here we've got a lot of different options here for size, spacing, scatter, rotation, and again, we've got another drop down for each of those options, just like we did in the calligraphic style brush. So we've also got some colorization options down here if we want to vary the color of our path or the objects that are scattered along our path. I'm not going to go ahead and dig too deeply into those, so let's go ahead and cancel that here. Now, in selecting this object, I made those two brushes available to us. We can actually take this object and just drag it right into our brush panel as well. And you can see here that there's three options available to us. We've got the scatter brush, the art brush, and the pattern brush. Now this time I'm going to go ahead and select the art brush, and let's go ahead and create one of those type of brushes from this artwork here. And again, we can name our art brush, and we can vary the width of the art brush based on the original artwork. So I'm going to leave that at 100%, and again, we can change the way that that path is drawn. I'm going to go ahead and leave that on fixed right now. Now we've got some scaling options here. Now we can either scale the artwork proportionally, we can stretch it and fit it along the length of a stroke, or we can stretch it between guides. Now really quickly, let me just show you what the stretch between guides looks like. You can see here if I select that option, we've now got two guides here that we can say, maybe we just want this middle portion of this artwork to stretch. We want to maintain the integrity of both the ends. So maybe we don't just want to stretch these guides to there and maybe somewhere around here. And before we hit OK on this brush, let's go ahead and explore some of these other options. We've got the direction here. This is going to be the direction that the artwork is applied to the path. So we've got some flipping options. We can either flip it along a path or we can flip it across a path here. And again, we've got some colorization options similar to the other brush we just looked at. So let's go ahead and hit OK on this brush now. And you can see here that a new art brush has been added. Now the art brush looks a little different. It's got a little bit of a preview here. So let's go ahead and select our brush tool, and let's go ahead and paint in a path using this new art brush. You can see here that the path has the artwork stretched along it, but the only parts that are stretched are the areas between those two guides that we specified. So this is a really nice option that's been added to the art brush within the brush panel. So maybe you have some artwork that you're creating a brush stroke out of, and you really need to maintain the integrity of the end of it. So you just want to stretch the middle of it. So this is a really nice option. Let's go ahead and come in here, double click and edit this art brush, and let's go ahead and stretch to fit the stroke length now. And let's hit OK, and let's go ahead and apply that to strokes. You can see here it looks just a little bit different. We'll just draw in another path here. You can see here that the entire artwork is being stretched along our path. Now, there are a couple other different types of brushes here I want to go ahead and hit on really quickly. So let's go ahead and come over here and create another new brush. Now, we've got here a bristle brush and a pattern brush. Now, the bristle brush, let's go ahead and hit OK on that. If we do that, you're going to see several options here that are going to allow us to mimic a traditional natural bristle brush. So we got the shape tip, the shape of the tip here, and we can choose whatever style brush we want here. So let's go ahead and maybe just select, let's select this round fan option here. Now, we've got some default settings here for the size, bristle length, bristle density, bristle thickness, paint opacity, and the stiffness of the brush. So I'm going to go ahead and leave those all where they're at, just so you can see what this new brush is going to look like. So you can see here again that brush has been added down here in our brush panel, and if we zoom in on that, you can see here that Illustrator is mimicking a natural bristle brush. So this is something new for Adobe Illustrator CS5, and it's really going to create some new options for you as far as creating artwork here. Now, let me just increase the size of that brush, and you can see here what that looks like if we zoom in nice and tight on that. So, new style of brush that we can create in Illustrator, very useful, very cool. Just really briefly to talk about the last style of brush here. The last style of brush is the pattern brush. And if we go in here and create that, you can see that we're going to be allowed to specify up to 5 tiles here for different areas of the stroke. You have a tile here for the side, the outer corners, the inner corners, the start and the finish of the path you're drawing. So we're not going to get too deep into this, but this is a type of brush that you would find useful if you're creating some kind of a border. Let's go ahead and cancel that. Now, again, we've got some new brushes that have been created in here in our brush panel, and these brushes are specific to this document. So we can delete these, we can remove these, but these brushes are only going to live in this document. Now, Illustrator does have a wide variety of brush libraries that are included with the brush panel here. Now, I know that comes off the screen. Let me just go ahead and drag this out some. And you can get to those right here through this button. And you can see there's several default libraries here that we can drill down into and find some already created brush strokes that we can work with here in Illustrator. So we've also got this other library button here, or this option here. So before we talk about that, let's talk about saving out our brushes. So if we wanted to save these brushes so we can import them into another Illustrator document, we could do that really easily just by coming to this little flyout menu here, choosing the Save Brush Library option. And it's going to bring up a dialog that's going to allow us to save those out as a .ai file. So in doing that, saving those out, we'd be able to import those in by coming to this Other Library option. Or we can also come over here to Open Brush Library and again, Other Library. And then we'll be allowed to browse to that file we just saved. So this is the brush panel in Adobe Illustrator, and I'd like to just challenge you at this point, dig deep in here and see what kind of interesting brush strokes you can create and how you can integrate those into your own artwork. In the next lesson, we're going to pick up where we're leaving off here and talk about creating stylized swirls and flourishes using brushes.